Good evening, everyone. It almost looks like my chair, except for the fact that we have many gentlemen with us. Usually we're only ladies, so welcome special to the gentlemen. I want to dedicate this evening to Moshe's mother, who passed away. And because of her life, the children are, the children exist, and her legacy exists. So the mourners should be comforted at the gates of Zion, and only blessings should come to the family from her passing. Amen. Listening and connecting to the inner voice. So this is exactly what my inner voice told me I have to do. Obviously, when a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, we made up the title of Listening and Connecting to the Inner Voice, I had absolutely no idea that this was going to happen and we're going to move into that direction at this particular moment, but this is just how Hashem does things. He wanted something special done in her memory at this particular time, and I guess it's my zchut at this moment to be able to do that. And even though I didn't know her, the idea is that we have neshamas. And all of our neshamas are with us at all times. And even though we may not see them, they certainly see us. They certainly see us, and the special of all this is that I would really like Moshe to be here, because he's never heard me teach and he's never heard me lecture, but also that is predestined. Listening and connecting to your inner voice is something that basically we do every single moment of our lives, and we have absolutely no clue that we do. Because part of the instinctive behavior of a human being, from the very moment that we leave the warmth of the womb and we get thrust into the world and the coldness of the world, we have with us the inner voice. Now, the interesting thing about the inner voice is that every single one of us can connect to it. Every single one of us can hear it. Every single one of us can or listen to it or deny it. Every single one of us has the potential of connecting to it. And every single one of us has the potential of disconnecting from it. The question is, as everything else, choice. What we choose, how we choose to listen, how we choose to speak, how we choose to interpret, how we choose to connect, how we choose to interact with that voice and the voice of others is the real secret of human interaction. You're sitting in front of my exhibition. You're looking at 30 years of work. You're looking at a minuscule amount of the language of my inner voice. Because every single solitary thing that you see, everything that you hear, everything that comes out of my personal creation, let's say, as an artist, is very, very connected to that inner voice. When I look at somebody, they don't have to say one single word. My voice will immediately say da 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 da, and give me a whole scenario of who that person is, what that person is, what that person needs, what he doesn't need, all kinds of things. Sometimes I listen. Most of the time, I don't. Sometimes I take that listening and I overthrow it with my reasoning, because I'm a very reasonable person and I live in a very reasonable world, and everything that we do is very reasonable apropos our lifestyle and the way we have been and are conditioning ourselves. The condition of humanity, the condition of whatever is going on in our mind, is something that we created for ourselves. We come with a package. The package has all kinds of stuff in it. What we decide to do with that package, how we decide to section off that package, is our business. That is the great, incredible thing of the inner voice. The inner voice has at least two voices. One that is, I'm great, I can do anything, I can overcome anything, everything is wonderful, and everything is positively perfect. And then there is the other voice that says everything is terrible. Just, oh my goodness, why did I even get up this morning? I have so much to do. I'm so overwhelmed with the whole day, and how am I going to cook, and how am I going to clean, and how am I going to go shopping, and how do I make that phone call, and what did I do here? Just, okay. And then there is, of course, the third voice. The third voice is the one that needs to sort of make sense between the two, and we call that the voice of reason. Reason, reasonable, being reasonable, listening to other people as they're speaking nonsense, and you have to sit there and you have to listen to this nonsense and shut your mouth and don't say anything, because it's only reasonable that you should be polite and be quiet. Wonderful. While my inner voice is going on inside my head, open your mouth, say something. You can't possibly not answer this. No, don't answer this. Because the minute you answer this, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. But it's just absolutely not true. There is the internal dialogue going on, but on a continual basis. I'm taking one little tiny example, but this goes on. Which pair of shoes should I wear today? Should I wear the ones that are shiny, that have a lower heel? Or should I wear the ones that have the higher heel because they're more elegant? What would be appropriate? Blah, 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 blah. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Okay, and this kind of stuff goes on every single moment of your existence. And you go along with business, and you take it totally and completely for granted, and you pay it no mind. In most of our lives, we go along day after day after day after day without paying any attention whatsoever to what is really going on. Comes one fine day. One fine day, and Jesus said something very interesting, very beautiful, that a Holocaust survivor said at her mother-in-law's funeral. He said, it's inevitable. You can't escape from it. On that day, at that moment, that hour, is when you connect, reconnect to that. And in a period of milliseconds that could be light years, your whole life flashes in front of your eyes, and all of the voices of all time and all of the voices that you've ever heard in your life, there they are. I'll share a story with you. Since we're talking about something very, very, very soft and very to the heart. This exhibition is really a memorial gift to my daughter, Alicia. Her words to me 18 years ago, just around this time, she died on Thanksgiving Day, 1996. She says to me, "Mother, don't stop painting. The world needs to know your work." And I'm sitting there, and I'm helpless, watching my child in front of me disappear. And I said to her, I said, "Really? Why are you talking about this? I mean, what kind of importance does this have right now? I have other things to think about in my life at this moment than to worry about painting, an exhibition, and people need to see my work, and I need to write books about the work." All of that comes from, everything comes from her. She put my life into the streamline, let's say, of where it is and where it has gone. And believe me when I tell you that I'm here her voice inside my inner voice every day of my life. And when it comes to making a decision, or when it comes to making a plan, so it's there. So it's just always there. My mother, was a Holocaust survivor. And I think I learned more in the moment of her death than I learned in all of the years that she was my mother. In Hasidus, we have a conversation about names and how important a name of a person is. And it says that when you call a person's name, you can actually pull them out of a deep, deep, deep coma, out of a deep illness, because their name is attached to their neshama. My mother was in the last throes when she decided that she was going to die. She decided. It was a very conscious decision on her. When I put her teeth into her mouth after they took out the equipment, okay, the first thing she did, she went like this. She went, "When will it be over? When will it end?" And I started to cry, and I said, "Mother, what do you mean? Everything's fine. The machines are great. Everything's wonderful. You can be all right." The throw had begun. The ball was rolling, and the time was ebbing. And I said to her, I said, Mother, don't leave me. I'm all alone in the world. I don't have anyone. She passed away after my daughter. So I couldn't reach her at all. She was going where she was going, and that was my mother. She was a survivor. She was a little tiny thing. She was absolutely tiny. But she had a will, unreal. When I realized, and I was being told, I didn't realize anything. No, I realized nothing. I'm not. When I was told that it was time to let her go, the voice said to me words that in my life I would never bring out of my mouth. Because I wouldn't be able to say these words. So the voice spoke for me. And it said, Mother, it's time to go. And your family, and your mother, and your father, and your sister, and Aviva, my daughter, who are waiting for you. And all of a sudden, a tear came out of her eye. First time in all the time that I saw my mother cry, I understood that the inner voice in her life was not the voice of the living. It was the voice of the dead. It was the voice of her mother, of her father, of her sister, of her uncles and her aunts, and her whole mishpacha, of her whole family, who she lived with, who she lived for, who grabbed onto her, and who now wanted her back. She was gone within a minute. And at that moment, I understood for the first time in my life what that inner voice really is all about. I understood it from two angles. I understood it from her point of view, if you want, at this moment, and I understood it from me. And I understood that the choice of which way to interpret that voice is entirely in our hands. When I begin a painting, physically, you see me, I'm starting and I'm going. I am not here. I am not here. I am inside that voice. I am inside listening to instruction of what to do, where to cut, which color to use, what medium to use, at what particular point, which butterfly I should choose, why the butterfly has to go particularly in that place. Okay. When I say a painting took me 10 years to do. 10 years is a long time. There are countries, there is moving, there is a lifetime in between, but there are 6 million neshamas inside that piece. There are the children of Theresienstadt inside that piece. There are their drawings inside that piece. There is pain. There is my childhood inside that piece. There is every single tear my mother and my father cried in that piece. And there's every sleepless night that I had listening to the voices. In 1992, I moved to Kiev from Budapest. I was not religious, but I've always been on the road. Always, since I'm a child. And Kiev is a place that is absolutely gorgeous. And for all intents and purposes, I have to say that the 2.5 best years of my entire life were spent in Kiev. Not today, but from 1992 to 1995, I was there. And I helped build a show. And I made film with the rabbi who came to Kiev to rebuild that whole community that was broken and torn to pieces. And one day he said to me, Miriam, have you been to Bab Yar? I said, no, what's Bab Yar? He said, it's the mass grave of 30 or 40,000 Jews that were killed by the Ukrainians And I said, okay, I'll go there. And I went there, and the single biggest experience of my life, other than the tragedy that taught me a lot, occurred in Babia. Now, the way you have to look at Babia, it's a big, gigantic park with like a big field and this monument, and then you walk toward the monument, and then you stand there, and there's nothing except voices. Nothing except and you hear. And you can be the most insensitive human being that walks the face of the earth. But if you just happen to be a Jew, and you just happen to go there, and you just for 1 second drop the external facade, the face, the mask that you wear, and you let yourself be. At that very second, you connect to the essence of who you are. And those voices begin to question. And they begin to accuse, and they begin to demand, and they begin to cry, and they begin to create a rock inside your own head. And there is so much of it that it will take years and years and years to sort out what is it. Who am I? What makes me do what I do? Why do I go where I go? Why am I what I am? What is this voice? And then, one little itty-bitty detail at a time, you come into the truth of yourself. That's what the inner voice is. The inner voice is the truth of yourself. And you can do 150 million things in your life against all of that. But ultimately, there is only the truth. Nobody teaches us that. Nobody tells us that. Because maybe somebody told us that, we would have lived our lives in a completely different way. We would have seen things in a completely different way. We would have behaved completely differently. Our relationships with other people would have been completely different. The truth, most of the time, is not a very pretty thing. And when you have to stare the truth in the face, and it looks right back at you, and it tells you, stop. You don't want to hear it. Go away. I don't need this. I have no time for this inner voice. I don't need to connect with that. I don't want to hear what it has to say, I'm busy, go find yourself somebody else. It really doesn't care. It has a job to do. It has a mission. Just like each and every person in this lifetime has a mission to fulfill. Sometimes we don't get to understanding our mission until the very last day. Sometimes Hashem gives you the mission immediately, right away. You've completed it, and He takes you away. Why? How is it possible that a 3-month-old baby gets killed in a terror attack? How is it possible? Where is the reasoning for this kind of thing? And it's very clear. The Neshama has come into the world for a particular reason. When everything is complete, and when they have completed their mission, not the mission in your Mishiyah, in your head, in your thinking, in what you would like to do, but when it's that time of day, when the mission is complete, that could be at the moment of birth, or that could be at the moment of death. I read, I think this morning, either this morning or yesterday, that there was a woman in Florida who gave birth, cesarean section, and a tiny little bit of amniotic fluid got caught in her blood, and it closed off the heart, and the woman was dead as a doornail for 45 minutes. No heartbeat, no pulse, no nothing, no machinery, nothing in the world could revive her. The doctors turned away. They did more than anybody possibly could, and they tried to figure out the exact time of death for the death certificate. And all of a sudden there was a zip, 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 zip. The machine started to move. She opened her eyes, and she was alive. Without any brain damage, no physical damage to her organs, absolutely zip. You see this woman sitting with this tiny baby. You know, it doesn't matter if you believe or you don't believe. It's not even a question whether or not you do or you don't. You can be in La La Land. It's fine. However, every tum-tum under the sun knows that 1 minute, 1 second without breath, without oxygen, it's goodbye and good luck. 45 minutes in a Goysha hospital. Hashem was present. She's not a Jewish woman either. She must be an enormous neshama to bring that particular baby into the world alive and be chosen to live the life to be the mother of that child. There are things that we have no concept that happen every moment of every day. And my inner voice says it's going to believe in it. To read it out can possibly be my reasonableness says this does not work. This is not possible. And then the inner voice from the other side turns around and she says, what are you talking about? Hashem can do anything. At any moment, at any time. And at this moment you're standing, and in another moment you're not. So, take that moment when you're standing. Take the time of that moment to listen to that inner voice. Because it gives you instruction. Somebody said to me once in a share, Miriam, how do you know what you should be listening to? How do you know what is the right thing to do? And I said, Torah says that if you know that it is L'Shem Shamayim, that it is for the sake of heaven, not for your sake, but for the sake of heaven, and you may not even like it, and you may not even agree, but it is the best thing to do for the sake of heaven, then your choice has to be for the sake of heaven. And you don't have to be religious for that. The inner voice does not care if you are religious or if you are not religious. The inner voice is already religious. The inner voice is already one of those spectacular gifts that Hashem gave you to begin with. He didn't ask you if you were going to be religious, if you're going to keep kosher, if you're going to do what you were taught when you were up there before you came down. He didn't ask you. He just put it into the package. And he said, no, you put it into the package. You'll deal with it as you deal with it. That is the inner voice. And that connection with the inner voice, hard job, incredibly simple. Difficult or simple in its complexity, and complex in its simplicity. And when you understand the relationship between one and the other, then you understand that the only thing that makes sense in relativity and what is relative, that simple is complex and complex is simple. And the more simple you are, and the more simplified you allow that voice to speak to you, the better of a person you're going to be. The Baal Shem Tov says it's about a simple. It's not about a Rav, and it's not about a Gaon, a brilliant guy. It's not about anything. It's about a simple Jew who comes with simple faith, who listens to the simplicity of the connected inner voice. Because the connected inner voice knows the language, understands the language, connects to the language, speaks the language, embraces the language, fortifies the language. Endless potential in utter and complete simplicity. very difficult to be simple in a very complex world. But the more faith you have, the simpler the hard thing becomes to him. And the more faith you have and the more connected you are, the more you give it away and say, I cannot help it. A month ago, before the show, after service, I should have so many good years in my life, please God, that I said, I just don't have it. I just don't have it. I don't know how I'm going to get all of this done. This looked like an incredible mountain to overcome in every way. And I didn't know how I was going to do that. And today, right now, this moment, basically, I'm at the finale of that whole big mountain. I reached the top of where I wanted to be, of what I wanted to do, of what I envisioned, of everything. But at the beginning of this journey, I said, I can't do it. I don't know how to do all this. I just don't know. Please, help me. And then one thing fell into another. One shaliach came, another messenger arrived, and there were people close who were there, who had a word, who had a gesture, who had something. Every time when I was feeling yucky, they were giving me that little bit of connection that I needed in order to continue. That's all it is. It's all we can do. It's all. And ultimately, that is all that is expected of us. Because if we can do that, everything else falls right into place. Hashem should give us all the strength and the ability, the potential to come to that place where we can listen and connect to that inner voice in order to guide us through all of the difficulties in our lives that we have to face. And we should only have good news, and we should only have simcha, we should only have joy. And even in the moment of pain, and even in the moment of sorrow, we should be able to connect to the bounty of Hashem, who in His bounty takes our neshama back into His loving arms